everybody? Welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to review She-Hulk. Oh boy, I have been looking forward to this fucking show for quite some time. It has gone through a lot of things. I have complained about the CGI, but other than that, I have been hyped for this show. I have kind of gone through waves though, just a bit, because first of all, I think that Mark Ruffalo's CGI on Mark Ruffalo in Endgame was some of the best CGI in anything. Like he looked real. Like, it was crazy. I thought that CGI was amazing in Endgame for Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, as Smart Hulk. So I was expecting that. Now, so I feel like that's why my reaction was so harsh with the CGI, because I was expecting that and it wasn't that. But like, once I started actually watching this episode, I was like, okay, while it isn't that great, it's still good enough. And that's what I feel like, dude. It's good enough. It's getting across her facial expressions. It's getting across how she feels. You know, it's getting all that across. It's doing a good enough job. So it was just like, okay, I'm good. But low key, like, I never admitted this, but back in the day when D23 came around, they announced 3 Disney Plus shows at the last D23. Which was forever ago, it feels like. One was Moon Knight, the other was Ms. Marvel, and the other was She-Hulk. And I was so excited for that, man. I was so hyped for all 3 of those shows, and I have enjoyed all 3 of those shows. Well, I enjoyed the 2, but I was actually more excited for She-Hulk, because She-Hulk was a comic I had already read by Dan Slott. Dan Slott's run on She-Hulk was great. And I'd already read that comic long before they had ever announced the She-Hulk thing. So She-Hulk, out of almost every character, every new character that they've done a movie or show about, is the only one that I have prior knowledge about. Other than like maybe the Eternals, because I read Neil Gaiman's run on the Eternals. But I know She-Hulk. I've read different runs on her. And I love that character. I adore that character. So I was excited. So I was a bit more excited for She-Hulk than I was for Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel. I was excited for She-Hulk than I was basically almost any other show they had announced. If I'm being quite frank, because I had already read stuff, so I had this, vibe going into it. And these trailers have been good. These trailers have been fun. Every single trailer, my excitement has grown and grown and grown for this, because it's more and more and more like how I imagine it would be in the comics. Like, very rarely, most of the time, even Marvel or DC, it doesn't always look exactly how it does in your head. In your head, you see a character or something done differently. I think Deadpool was done exactly how you imagine it in your brain. Like, when you thought Deadpool, that's exactly how it would look. If anyone ever thought Iron Man, I believe it would have looked like that. Captain America, First Avenger, probably the same. It's not too often that something looks almost exactly like it did in your brain. But I gotta tell you, She-Hulk pulled that off. Her performance as Jenifer Walters is almost exactly how I imagined. She's a tad bit more snarky, but only a tad. Jen's pretty snarky. Jen's pretty quick-witted and coming at you. And she has that. Tatiana Maslany does an amazing job at this. And when she got announced to be She-Hulk, I had just saw her in Perry Mason, the new version of Perry Mason, which is actually a pretty good show on HBO. And I had watched her Orphan Black show that everyone said she was amazing in. And I saw her, and I never finished Orphan Black, but I saw enough of her that I'm like, okay, this is a good actress. I think she can do this. And she's doing such a great job. She's so relatable. She's so real. She feels like a person that you would actually see in real life, which is something that they've done great with the casting of Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk, are characters that you believe. Not only that, but the chemistry between her and Mark Ruffalo, particularly in this first episode, who knows, we'll see him again, is fucking great. Like, they feel like family. They feel like siblings, if we're being honest. Like, they feel close. Like, the vibe you get is like, you get a cousin vibe. You get the feeling that they've known each other for a very long time. They've known each other since they were kids, that they're comfortable around each other. They just talk and hang out and get drunk. And just they feel authentically like I said, like family. And you can feel that the two actors, Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany, clearly had hit it off immediately on set. Mark was probably, because they were probably walking her through the process of being in the CGI, you know, the mocap suit, and they're probably having so much fun filming this. I can't wait for the behind the scenes, you know, of this, because I guarantee you they were having a blast filming this. I would almost guarantee they were having fun, and they were just behind in the mocap suit just having a blast. But the center of the episode does focus basically on the origins of She-Hulk, and it's about 28 minutes. It's about a 28-minute episode, which basically the entire show, every episode is going to be about 28 minutes. I mean, granted, there's 9 episodes, so at least it's not 6. But yeah, every episode's going to be about 28 minutes, at least as far as I can tell. And not including the post-credit scene, which was an amazing post-credit scene, by the way. Amazing post-credit scene. But the actual show kind of revolves around Jenifer Walters, who is Bruce Banner's cousin. And, you know, Bruce is just hanging out with his cousin one day. He's hanging out with his cousins one day. He can't really do too much, so he's recovering. And they answer a question that a lot of fans have wondered, which is, why is Bruce Banner in a sling? Why is Bruce Banner in the... One, how did he turn back to the Hulk? Because we were under the impression he was going to be just Smart Hulk permanently. And two, why is he still in the sling? Turns out the answer to that is, whatever damage was done to him in Endgame when he snapped the gauntlet, he can't heal. He had to turn back into human form in order to heal from it. He couldn't heal from it like as regular Hulk. For some reason or another, the only way he could heal from it is to turn himself back into a human. But the process is clearly going to be a long one. But the process would be a very long one. You know, he'd have to heal like a human, and it would have to take much longer. So that's why he's a human, because he created this device to suppress his gamma, turn himself human, so that his arm can heal. So that's an interesting note to know about the Hulk, and that pretty much answers that question. That question that was wandering out there, boom, off the table immediately. Within the first, 2 minutes of the show, they answer that question. Also, they dangle around a question about Steve Rogers' virginity that will also be answered at the end of the show. But some random-ass Sicarian ship, yeah, that Sakaar, Thor Ragnarok Sakaar, some random-ass Sicarian ship that looks kind of vaguely like the Grand Master ship, shows up in front of them, Jin swerves off the road, they crash, and some of his blood manages to get into Jin's bloodstream through a cut wound. And the reason that it manages to do that, and they kind of someone else explained this, it's not explained this, but kind of mentioned this, is the fact that you don't ever see, even when Bruce is Bruce, you don't see him bleed, because the Hulk almost stops him from taking any real damage, so he doesn't really bleed all that often. Whereas in this case, he has this inhibitor thing on, so he's bleeding all over the place because he's human. Which, by the way, it's kind of scary to think that within this time frame, someone could have easily killed Bruce. They could have easily killed him, because he was, mortal-ish at this point with this inhibitor thing. But I digress. His blood gets in her, she hulks out, and they go through this nice journey of him trying to teach her how to be a Hulk, trying to reconcile, and they end up going to the Gamma Lab that we heard about in Endgame. In Endgame, he talked about this Gamma Lab that he was in to merge himself and Hulk together, and we see the Gamma Lab. Apparently, it's in the middle of it's in Mexico somewhere, and Tony helped them build this spot and helped them build the lab and whatnot. And apparently, they were chilling there in that 5-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame, hanging out, getting drunk, and just shooting the shit, apparently. So Tony helped. So it's kind of almost, I'm not going to say Tony did, but it's sort of insinuated that Tony helped Bruce merge his halves. So it wasn't just Bruce down there. Tony might have been there helping. There's a lot of Tony Stark mentions. There's a Led Zeppelin shirt. That's definitely something Tony would have wore. Obviously, there's a bar where Tony's name on it because he used to get drunk there. So, it's fun that that's still a thing. That, Tony was still, him and Bruce, their bromance never, really, came down. The bromance stayed strong throughout, even through the darkest times. that's kind of cool to know. But the relationship between Jen is, the thing about Jen, she has full control of her Hulk form. And in the comics, I can't remember quite what it is in the comics off the top of my head, but I do know that in the comics, that's kind of the big thing about Jen and Hulk. The big difference between the two is when Bruce turns to the Hulk, he's the Hulk. He's sometimes he can be mindless rage monster, or he's just an angry dude, but he's not Bruce anymore. He's some other thing. Whereas Jen is Jen. Hulk Jen, normal Jen, she's just Jen. And for a long time in the comics, for a good chunk of time, she was stuck in her Hulk form. Then she started being able to go back and forth again. I like her being able to go back and forth, especially this kind of story that Dan Slott ended up telling. I love that. I mean, granted, her being stuck is an interesting thing, but since he's kind of being stuck in his form, it kind of would take away from it. But in a way that it's kind of like, there are multiple reasons that it seems like in the MCU at least that she has control. One, her blood is different. Apparently, her and Bruce share some type of common. I mean, they're cousins. They're not like second cousins. They're cousins. Like some, like close cousins. Like her mom or her dad is his aunt, or uncle, like that kind of cousin. So they clearly have some type of genetic similarities, which is why she was able to survive it. But apparently her genetics are even weirder than his, because she's like, what's the word I'm looking for? She's handling the levels of gamma radiation better than he did. Meaning she did. That's why she hasn't like gone completely crazy, like he did, and she has complete control over it because apparently her genetics can handle it a little bit better than his can. But also, she doesn't have an alternate personality. See, I'm gonna just include, like, some people don't know this, so I'm gonna just let some people know this. So, like, technically, the Hulk isn't real. It isn't. It is an alternate personality that Bruce has created in his own mind. And technically, Bruce created the Hulk long before the gamma radiation. If you read some comics, I sound like a dick for saying that, but in the comics, Bruce's father was an asshole. I mean, he abused the fuck out of him. Abused him something fierce. Abused him and his mom something fierce. And through all that trauma and being bullied in school and all this stuff, he created the Hulk. In his brain, this alternate personality that's bent on, destruction and mayhem, that's bent on destruction and angry. He created that in his brain when he was younger. Like, so the Hulk, and he got like some type of thing and he kind of suppressed that part of himself. But the Hulk was always in Bruce Banner. There was always almost Moon Knight-like alternate personality inside of Bruce long before he ever got hit by that gamma radiation. So Bruce's problem is in his mind. The Hulk isn't real. The Hulk is still Bruce. It's in his head. So theoretically, like right now, if he was able to actually mentally get past that and become a whole person, he would have almost as much control over his form, transformations and whatnot, as Jen does. Theoretically. But also, there is an idea out there that not only have Jen and him had different experiences, but as a woman, which was mentioned in the show, which I know would probably piss some people off, she is used to having to control her emotions and control her anger and whatnot, just to, get through normal life. Like, that's just is what it is, Like, I mean, it's particularly women in a very competitive kind of work environment, like being a lawyer, or, being being an attorney, working in those, like, being a doctor. Women working in these very, a lot of times male-dominated fields, they have to act a bit differently than a dude does. They do. They just do. And you know how it goes, man. You know how that goes. If if a woman is, doesn't smile and you immediately think something's wrong with them. If they show that they're angry or frustrated or kind of act out, you think that they're being a little much. You know how that goes. You know, we all know how that goes. And the idea that since she's lived her life like that, like most women in America, that she has a baseline ability to control her emotions a bit better than Bruce does, just because they have their life experiences are different. So there are multiple levels and layers to why she has control over her Hulk form more than Bruce, and I think that's an interesting thing, because in the comics, for the most part, it's really just like, well, she does, you know. But there are layers to why she has better control. Like I said, the chemistry between them is fun. Seeing, like, you know, that mini fight between them was awesome, was pretty fun too. But I only have one complaint. I think they should have released the second episode. Second episode, because we really didn't actually get into the show that I've heard people talk very highly about, was the lawyer stuff and the craziness. I'm like, we haven't really gotten to that yet. I know we're getting to it, but we haven't gotten there yet. And we kind of hinted at it at the end, but I really wish we would have gotten it. Now, I will... oh, man, the Steve Rogers thing. Wow. Even Chris Evans tweeted about it. Like, that was funny. That was funny. But this was a fun first episode. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I wish... either this episode should have been like 15 or 20 minutes long. Make it an hour-long episode for the start. I've seen shows do that, have the first episode be an hour, and then, you know, the next episode be like much shorter. But like, because I really wanted to get into the lawyer stuff too, and we didn't get that. And I feel like, you know, some people who aren't on board, who came because of some of the reviews, aren't gonna get that either, and they might be turned off. And I really wish they did. I still had a great time with this pilot. It was a fun episode. So much world building. Great chemistry between the two Hulks, and I can't wait for next week. Thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Show. Please like, subscribe, and comment below and let me know, what did you think of She-Hulk? I loved it. Thank you guys again. See you in the next one. Ooh.